more stationary this morning than I know. Upstairs running the show by isn't going to be his friend today. So that being said, every one of us has a favorite place, right? You know, we like to decompress. I'd like to do a little exercise this morning. Imagination for just a moment, okay? I'd like you to close your eyes for just a moment. Picture yourself Is it cold? Is it nighttime? Like, if you reach down, open your eyes. How to go back to that place just from our memory. Feel whether it be, you know, the sand under beautiful sunshine and the crashing waves, right? You were able to take your where were you? Sam? Tom? When we go through the night,
Went there one Sunday night after church.
So Kathy was talking about being out, looking up to the sky, seeing the stars, seeing the just the beauty and the majesty of the stars. Seeing the stars on a clear night. My parents, almost every time we visit them, is dealing with all the light. But when you get out away, notice the difference in the stars. The busy often affected by our surroundings, right? Surroundings. But when lights from everything filter into the moisture and humidity, and you just don't get the same clarity. Into a desert and gotten a chance to see the stars from the. So for those of you that haven't, I'm going to give you a little glimpse. As visible as I would like it to be in this room. Lights in this room make it harder to see. Graph taken from the sky. The Grand Basin National Park. See this wonder and this beauty. When we look at this, imagine yourself as the shepherd boy David, taking that night watch, making sure no animals attack. Electric lights that David had to deal with? Maybe a small campfire. There weren't. He wasn't dealing with. When you think about that, I want to take that setting, right? The moment as we turn to Psalms. And we're going to read Psalms 19, verses 1 through 6. And the expanse proclaims, they pour out speech, knowledge. There is no words. It seems kind of contradictory, doesn't it? Day after day, they pour out speech. Night after night, they communicate. But there is no speech. Can say something to someone else. Right? I asked most of your children say, and never glance, that look, that clue, but Jeff, right? And she may be telling me, the reality is, to communicate. Right? When something is so apparent, right? So in that our coworkers, spoken doesn't need to be spoken. If my kid's misbehaving in the pew next to me, guess what Gabe knows? It's without saying anything, right? And in this situation, what we're talking about is the same thing. When you look at this, Tom.
Bodily language, but when I see this as being, you're looking into the heavens, I mean, God's glory. Just thinking the possibility of saying, glory, there are no We just can't express God's power having done.
So I'm going to repeat what Tom said just so everybody. But when you look at, could you adequately describe? We're speaking out loud. Can I adequately describe someone that has never seen it appreciated? Right? The creation itself, it doesn't need to be described. People have tried these things. David here is admitting they're so glorious, they're so amazing. They are speaking of God. It's powerful when you think of it that way. Nobel Prize winner named Stephen, physicist, staunch atheist. I don't believe he ever had. His ongoing theses that he kept going back to was that science can do for the world. That books about it. He do everything in his power. Hence, you can be freed from this bondage that he referred to. In his book, Dream, when confronted with this truth, confronted by Muslims with the fact, how do you heavens? All around us. Is that his response was, nature is more beautiful than absolutely necessary. And when the creation, building a functional building, a time working on the aesthetics of prisons. But the reality is beautiful. Then their message is, it would help if I advance the slide. World. To the end of the world. Tent for coming from his home. It rises from one end of the heaven. Nothing is hidden from its platform. This morning, we're streaming this Bible class so that can listen to this congregation when they're away. That stream is available for anyone in the world who wants to listen to it. We're listening to it right now, but do we? Platform is there anyone on this planet that is not affected by Tom?
The fact that there is an individual response within us, a pebble. I mean, it's just a pebble. But the fact that there is something like that, they are. And I think we were the natural response of man.
When you look at an individual pebble, you may not see the true magnificence of the creation, right? Level, if you really, really try, you can be absolutely. Studied biology at during grade school or during high school. Some people have gone even beyond that and have the microbiologies and when you look at those things, you cannot help but when we first look at wow, God laying on the ground. You may pick that up and go, wow. Things we are a lot of times if Tom's point, we have this innate. So when I was talking about that natural setting earlier and thought of their favorite natural setting, I'm coming up with one. Desire and need in those settings to understand and those things. Now, we to the church today. Drive into the church building. But that it was an exciting moment. To put it in perspective for us today, you were at in your head. You got this guy standing up here, maybe on this side, usually. And what's he doing? I love doing that. He is grinning from ear to ear. the nerves that he showed for the last 10 minutes standing up there kind of moving his hands around. He's looking down that aisle. He's smiling from ear to ear. Right? He's excited. Think about the son. The son hiding from anything? Around going, how am I going to get to the other end today? No, it comes up. No hesitation. Hiding that sky without any. You don't think of the sun necessarily as you don't personify round, giant, bright, hot. You don't normally assign, but would you say if the sun is proud? Puffed up? Is anybody going to stop me? How? When you think about it, it's not a NASCAR race, right? Where you're weaving back, running a race. In this case, I'm thinking about the instruction, the rest of the verses here runs from one end to the other. Is the athlete running his race concerned about the spectators? But the minute that gun goes off, what's he doing? He's blocked everything else out except that line in front of him. The majesty, the clarity that comes from that. How many of us, we all go to the beach. We live at the beach. You've been to the beach. Maybe not as often. I always put an umbrella up. I don't have hair. I'm of a complexion that causes me to turn bright red. I put on sunscreen. I do all the things I can to protect myself from the sun. Doesn't always work. Summer days, when it's 90, you put the sunscreen on, you're sitting underneath the umbrella. You're doing everything you can to hide. It is still hot. And if the wind stops blowing, like you're just baking. I'll see that, right? So nothing is hidden from the sun's heat. So, I feel like I'm missing a page here. Let's continue. Psalms 33. So we're going to change. Hey, let me know. Psalms 33 verses 1 through 9. The Lord, you righteous ones, praise from the upright is beautiful. Make music to him with a tender of the strings with a joyful shout. Okay. For the and all of his work is trustworthy. He loves righteousness and justice, unfailing love. So why are we breaking out the harp? Why are we doing those things? Because God's trustworthy. He's just. He possesses unfailing.
Phraseology and concept would have more of an impact on them than it does today. Today, we have Congress and several other means. But if you look at the history of not being righteous, not judging correct, making life terrible for the people, find one so powerful that he controls. He is of justice and of mercy.
So to Tom's point, right? The examples, whether it be somebody that you work for, the examples are flawed. They are flawed. Whether it be the elders of this church, the that we're always trustworthy, that we're always that's a pretty high bar to set, right? Beyond with that about our God. Made, we're going to continue. And all the stars by the breath of his mouth. It's the depths into storehouses. Let the whole the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him. For he spoke, he commanded, and it came into existence. Oh yeah, and this, right? So not only is he just, not only is he full of unfailing love, he's got his on the canvas. It's his work. The creation. So Tom, you mentioned world. Let's think about business leaders. Sometimes great things. Their words with a command, with instruction. Right? It was put into all of the natural laws that we live under. Through the simple word of God. Existence. Let's look at verse 5 through 10. And this is a story that point here. Capernaum. Lord, my servant is lying at home, paralyzed. And he said to him, heal him. Worthy to have you come under my roof, but just say the word, for I too am a man under authority, having soldiers under my command. Goes. I say to an and he does it. Hearing and said to those following him, found anyone in Israel with so great a faith. Jesus having the power of his Father. He didn't have to physically walk down the street, walk into the house, lay and heal him. He recognized, well, I'm exaggerating a little bit for purposes of the discussion, physically being there. When we think about the creation, then that amazing fact that Jesus, I don't know if he was 3 blocks away or next door. Does it really matter? It doesn't. It doesn't matter the physical, whether the guy was around the corner or in the next. When we look at the creation, the detail, the way the natural world works, with God's word. Before we finish out this morning, give us this day our daily bread. When we think about, do we think about that as part of the creation? Not normally, right? I take something out of the pantry and but if you back from that, we're at a warehouse somewhere it was trucked from. We're in a field somewhere. Psalm 65. You visit the earth and water it abundantly. God's stream is filled with water, For you prepare the earth, you soften it with showers and bless its growth, so Jesus said, that our needs, he was acknowledging that without all the things in your creation that you've put in play, I can't have my daily. Go all the way back to if there's a drought, what happens? What happens in countries where you have severe droughts today? Hunger, famine. From that a lot today. When there's drought, without a natural law, we're missing those things. Verse 11. Plenty. The wilderness pastures. The pastures are covered. Indeed, they. How many of you have been? Go ahead, Galen.
The need for sustenance on a daily basis reminds us that periodic, it isn't once in a while. Our day after day after day, just as our spiritual need is day after day, it's continuous, it's a constant reminder.
So I'm going to share that again. As it relates to sustenance. We're not bears. Several months, right? So when Jesus prays, skip over that, right? How many of us pray at meals? For the food that we're about to eat, right? All the way back to go, wow. Blessed that farmer with sunshine and rain in the appropriate amounts. Table.
My Google's not seeing the daily bread, whatever reason, hit me a little different this time around. To where, but the manna from heaven, and I'm trying to. Together, I'm trying to find. Had daily bread. That was it. That was all they had. It came at that particular time. It could also be a little bit praying for our food.
Absolutely. So go as humans, we need daily. To your point, what we find wandering in the desert, what do they need? Direct intermediary step, right? So for them, it wasn't, well, it went from the processing to the supermarket. To them, it was, here's today's and tomorrow's portion. Yeah, Tom.
Alone. It's the argument is that the people at that time nothing but bread alone. All the prisons that bread alone. Early culture from the Israelis, but they believe
it's a shorter list, right? Nebraska, right? Now, depending on the time of year you went to Nebraska, are crop production, right? Whether that be wheat, whether that be corn in the field, and where they're at in their rotation, right? But if you've ever seen that scale and the magnitude are amazing, right? When you think about how much wheat is produced in the United States to staggering, right? I doubt any of us necessarily were thinking about that particular natural setting earlier. There's something beautiful, and even if you drive through, the northern part of this county, certain parts of even up into Alabama, and you start driving past to them, isn't there? And you realize that that's when we talk about harvests, do those happen is that something that happens every day? No. So even though it's daily bread, right? God's power as well, right? So we talked about the daily reminder that we see in the we have those as daily reminders, but when we talk a daily reminder, but you also see notice in verse 11 there it says you crown the year with your goodness, right? So at the two verses, in those two verses I'm not going to add any. I'm going to finish with these two. Romans chapter 1 and verse 20. That in divine nature being understood through what he has made. As a result, people are without. Hebrews 11. We understand that the universe was created by the was made from things that are not visible. Your attention.